Eliminate the machines. Escape the megastructure. Eliminate the machines. Escape the megastructure. Eliminate the machines. Escape the machines. Escape, 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 escape. Failure is forbidden.
Okay, I'm not gonna lie, I've been looking for an excuse to cover this game for a while now. But MotorSlice is a linear parkour game developed by Regular Studio, where you follow P and Orbie as they traverse a run-down megastructure, all the while eliminating robots that reside within it. And while that simple pitch for the game sounds cool all in itself, the game is surprisingly a lot more cooler than just that pitch alone, as P and Orbie's journey through the megastructure forces them to fight rogue construction machines that won't hesitate to kill P on sight. All the while, the megastructure itself stands as one of the most atmospheric, haunting, and yet somehow beautiful locations I've ever seen a game set in. Now, call me biased, sure, but I have a huge interest in megastructures, whether that be the seemingly vast open structure of Walled City 99 in Stray, or even in real life with the now demolished Kowloon Walled City, which stood tall in Hong Kong until it was demolished in 1994. My point is that I have a huge interest in megastructures, so you bet your ass that when I saw MotorSlice for the very first time, and I saw that it was set in a megastructure, I was going feral at the chance to cover this game. But now that I actually am covering this game, let's talk about everything there is in MotorSlice, so you can understand just why I love this game so much. Starting with the... Okay, so a quick disclaimer before we jump in, but my discussion points surrounding MotorSlice come from the demo that was recently released for the game. And I know that's not really an important thing to point out, but I figured it was worth mentioning in case anything in the game changes between the demo and full release. But MotorSlice is a linear parkour game with not only combat elements, but also slice of life sections as well, that just make the game an absolute treat to play. But in terms of the parkour, and I suppose by extension world design, MotorSlice takes the mirror's edge approach, meaning that the objects P parkours off of are all painted in a single color to signify the player of their importance. However, unlike Mirror's Edge, where everything is glossed over in red and the parkourable objects sort of just fade into view, MotorSlice covers everything in a constant shade of yellow, which I'm sure is making some of you watching roll your eyes, since I know the yellow paint discussion is sort of a heated one, but I promise you that it actually fits together really well with the megastructure P traverses through. Because if you haven't noticed already, the megastructure itself is sort of like an unfinished construction site, complete with cranes, crates, and enemies that are literally just mini excavators, creating an atmosphere that just makes the whole megastructure feel incomplete, and like it was in the early stages of construction before things obviously went haywire. But because of this, it makes the yellow painted objects that P utilizes feel right at home in the game, as the color yellow is a prominent color when looking at literally any construction site. But moving on from the yellow paint, the combat of the game is fairly simple, as P is armed with a chainsaw sword which, real quick, is awesome. But when it comes to attacks, P really only has two styles of attacking, one of which being her basic attack, which is just her swinging the chainsaw left and right, and the second being a jumping attack, where after jumping, P lunges towards the enemy and takes them out in one clean strike. Now, before we get into the next segment for this video, I want to take a minute to talk about the slice of life segments in MotorSlice. You see, in the game, P will occasionally get the option to slack off, and if she chooses to do so, a small interaction between her and her companion Orbie will play out. Now, Orbie up until now is a character that I haven't really brought up all too much, and that's because they're a little weird. You see, while Orbie acts as the camera and flashlight for the player and P, their interactions with P while slacking off is exactly why I'm saying they're so weird. Because each time P chooses to slack off, the interaction always begins with P either complaining about their current situation or talking about the megastructure they're traversing. However, it's what Orbie says that throws me off so much, because as the player, you actually get to pick Orbie's response to P during these interactions. And while you do have the option to always pick a very blunt and straightforward response, where Orbie tells P to basically get back to work, it's the other option that's throwing me for a loop, as the second option is always more intimate than the down to business response you could choose, with Orbie saying things like,
"But we're really close.
and
Why don't we have some fun?"
which is just weird for something like Orbie, which is a drone, to say. And I feel like what makes it weirder is that these more intimate dialogue options are always shaking, giving off the vibe that these aren't things Orbie is normally supposed to say. But aside from these slack off segments, the last thing I want to bring up when it comes to Orbie is Orbie's ability to seemingly kill P. You see, in MotorSlice, when you die, which, believe me, you will probably do quite often, P respawns at her last available checkpoint, and when she does, a small animation plays where we can see P arch her head back up and breathe as if she just came out of shock. But the reason I bring this up in regards to Orbie is because by pressing a button twice on your controller, Orbie can forcefully respawn P to her last available checkpoint, causing the same exact respawn animation to play whenever P dies. Now, I'm not sure what the use is for this feature, aside from pushing P back to a checkpoint in case you get stuck or something, but I'm also not sure if Orbie is killing P every time this feature is used, as we never see P's body splatter the same way it does when she dies. So I can't be entirely sure that Orbie's killing P every time, or if this feature will even be a thing in the full release, but it's something I figured I'd bring up anyway because of how much it threw me for a loop while playing. But that's enough Orbie conspiracy theory talk. It's finally time I talk about the games. Okay, so I technically already touched on this earlier, but I just wanted to take a second to glaze the game's art style, because despite it being rooted in brutalist architecture, the megastructure MotorSlice is oddly beautiful. And while yes, it's as beautiful as a real-life construction site, as someone who used to walk through houses in my area as they were being built, I personally find the game's art style to be pretty cool and familiar, as the in-progress houses I used to explore looks pretty similar to MotorSlice, complete with dirt and sand being everywhere, random tools and objects being scattered about, and construction machines being left idle in the area. So while yes, I admit I'm a little weird for enjoying the game's art style and architecture, the game is still very pretty to look at. But alright, I'll stop glazing the game's art style and finally move on to talking about the games. Is what I would say is the next segment, but in reality, it's not. You see, the reason I don't want to talk about the game's issues is because, well, for starters, I don't really have any, and well, because I'd be talking about issues coming from the game's first ever demo. Which, while yeah, would be easy to sit here and nitpick the game's shortcomings, if it had any, it also wouldn't be entirely fair, since on the main title screen of the game, at the very top it says,
"Work in progress. Everything is subject to change. You may find bugs. The game is not fully optimized. Thank you for your understanding."
So even though I'm sure other people will find issues with the game and make their opinions be heard, I personally don't have any issues with the game. But with that being said, it's finally time I get into the... So similarly to Metro Gravity, I got the chance to ask Luqui, one of MotorSlice's developers, a few questions regarding the game. So without stalling too much, let's get into it. Are you solo developing MotorSlice?
I'm developing with my brother. Music was commissioned.
What can players expect from the full release?
This demo features Chapter 1, and the full game will have 8 chapters, plus an epilogue and a prologue, each with its own boss fight. Also, the full game will have more small interactions between the girl and the drone, more features, more enemies, new mechanics in every chapter, and more story segments. And a few other things that I don't want to spoil.
What games or pieces of media inspired you to develop MotorSlice?
The main inspirations are all of the 3D Prince of Persia games, Mirror's Edge, Shadow of the Colossus, Eco, and Nier Automata. Besides games, slice of life animes. Not one in particular, but just the vibes. You know, routine, small talk, this sort of thing. I love this stuff. Also, brutalism architecture is a huge source of inspiration, not only for visuals, but I use brutalism as a fiction. I'll leave this for your imagination though.
But now that we've heard from one of the devs, it's about time I wrap this video up with my... So at the end of the day, MotorSlice is a fantastic parkour game that you should definitely check out, as there are a ton of secrets to uncover inside the megastructure. And hell, not even just secrets, Little details too, because I completely forgot to mention how when shining a light into P's face, P will actually react to you doing that, and will even slowly guide her hand across surfaces when she's directly next to them. And while yeah, stuff like this is pretty small and likely won't be noticed by the average player, I absolutely love seeing little details like this in games, as it adds a layer of polish that I can't help but smile at whenever I see it. But MotorSlice is a game that I'll be sure to revisit in the future, whether that be by playing it during one of my live streams, or by covering it again in the future when the full release drops. But please, go show the game some love by checking out the demo on Steam and wishlisting it as well. I'll be sure to leave a link to each respective MotorSlice page down in the description. But for now, feel free to comment on any games I should cover next, and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. But alright, I'll see you later. Bye!